haven't had my coffee yet. I haven't had any coffee yet, so I'm not.
Uh,
Okay. We have olive base.
no, let's go for Gimel Vav.
That'll be better. Okay.
Yeah.
Why am I missing this? Maaser Sheni. Gimel, I'm sorry, Vav. Right, yeah, here he is. I didn't put this issue in. Okay. Um, if Bishop Vav. If produce whose work has been completed passed through Yerushalayim, its Maaser Sheni must be brought back and eaten in Yerushalayim. If its work has not been completed, baskets of grapes to the press or baskets of figs to the drying place, Beit Shammai says the Maaser Sheni must be brought back and eaten in Yerushalayim. But Beit Hillel says it must be redeemed and eaten anywhere. Reb Shimon ben Yehuda says in the name of Reb Yossi, and Shammai and Beis Hillel did not disagree regarding Maaser Sheni produce whose work has not been completed, that it may be redeemed and eaten anywhere. About what did they disagree? About produce whose work has been completed. Beis Shammai says that Maaser Sheni must be brought back and eaten in Yerushalayim, and Beis Hillel says it must be redeemed and eaten anywhere, but the mine may be brought in
What?
and taken and redeemed. What was that?
No, it was something just popped up on my screen and I stopped it.
Oh, this what?
Okay.
Oh my gosh. I looked around for a second.
Uh-huh.
Okay. If a tree stands inside but inclines to the outside, or stands outside and inclines to the inside, what faces the wall inward is considered inside, and what faces the wall outward is considered outside. Oil presses, whose entrances are inside but their interiors are outside, or the entrances are outside and their interiors are inside, Beit Shammai say all is considered inside, but Beis Hillel says what faces the wall inward is considered inside, what faces the wall outward is considered outside. The chamber is built in the holy part and the opening into the non-holy. Their interior is not holy, but their roofs are holy. Built in non-holy and opening into holy, their interior is holy and their roofs are non-holy. Built in the holy and non-holy and opening into the holy and non-holy, their interior and roofs above the holy and toward the holy are holy, and above the non-holy and toward the non-holy are non-holy. Okay.
Okay. Maaser Sheni, Shenichnas Yerushalayim v'nitma. Okay. Now we're going to deal with the rules of what happens when Maaser Sheni becomes Tameh. Okay. Um, so the general principle is that you should be able to um, is when you've got let's just revise a couple of important things. When you have the original produce that came out of the field and you took Maaser Sheni,
Mhm.
that produce can be redeemed. Okay, you can put it onto money and you can carry the money to Yerushalayim. Why? Because why did Chazal allowed you to redeem it? Because it's not so easy to take a basket of fruit or whatever to Yerushalayim. Easier to take the money value and take it through. Okay. Now, when they said that you cannot when they said that you cannot redeem it, that's just to make sure that you're treating it properly. It's a big header to be able to redeem it anyway. But if you take the money and now purchase edible foods with it, edible stuff with it, produce, um, then effectively what you're saying is okay, now this is the stuff that I'm going to be taking to Yerushalayim. Even if you like just outside Yerushalayim, you see, oh, that looks good, let me buy that. So now you're saying, okay, this is not such a schlep for me to take to Yerushalayim. And therefore, once you've used your funds on edible goods, you can no longer redeem it. But the exception is going to be for if it becomes tameh.
All right.
So that's
Okay.
Maaser Sheni shenichnas liYerushalayim v'nitzma. Here's your case. You brought the food into Yerushalayim. You redeemed your money onto food and you brought it into Yerushalayim, and oopsie, it became tameh. Bein shenitma ba'avatuma, bein shenitma b'vladatuma. And now we're going to make a distinction in halacha between what form of tuma it got. Now the Mishnah uses the term av hatuma and vlad hatuma, which normally means an av hatuma, literally
Right.
like a sheretz or a balkeri touched it, or okay. And then there's and vlad hatuma is normally a rishon, right? So if it was a second degree tuma, which means that the produce would become a second degree trauma, first degree to second degree. But that's not actually what the Mishnah means. It's using a bit of a shortcut, and which is a little misleading. Which ArtScroll actually gave a good explanation of this. That what we're talking about actually is Tuma Doraisa versus the Tuma Durabanan. So when you're talking about an Ava Tuma, it's talking about a Doraisa Tuma, so even if it's a Rishon, because a Sheni is also Tame, and food takes on Sheni Tuma. So there's no so it doesn't seem that that would have made a difference. The difference is that if it's a Durabanan Tuma, such as something caused by a liquid. Right? Liquids become have that whole chumrah where a liquid becomes back to a rishon and is metame to a rishon. That's a whole din drabanan. Uh, okay, and now we're going to be looking at that. So when we see avatuma, we're reading doraisa, and when we see vladatuma, we're reading drabanan. Okay. And also, we're going to make a distinction whether the Tumah occurred outside Yerushalayim or inside Yerushalayim, because there's a concept that the walls of Yerushalayim grab the produce. Remember, we saw in the previous Mishnah that when produce goes through Yerushalayim, do the walls grab it if it's unfinished, or if it's tevel or whatever. Okay. So now the positions are Beis Shammai says Yipade v'yei achel hakol bifnim. Fine. So everything must be redeemed, but it must still be eaten inside because it's still got the shame of Maaser Sheni on it, and it came into Yerushalayim, and therefore even once you've redeemed it and it goes out to Chulin, you still have to eat it inside Yerushalayim, except chutz mi shenisma ba'ava tuma b'chutz, unless it took on a doraisa tuma outside. So if it took on a derasitum outside, the walls of Yerushalayim never took hold of it. Even once you brought it into Yerushalayim, it was already tameh before you brought it in with a heavy tumah, and therefore the walls of Yerushalayim did not grab it. And if you want, you can take it back out again after you've redeemed it. Ubeis Hillel omrim hakol yipadeh v'yeyachel b'chutz. Again, Beis Hillel is more makel, and they say the only thing, everything may be taken out again. The walls do not grab it unless it was a vlada tuma bifnim, unless it was in other words, a durabanan tuma. So you brought it in, and the walls grabbed it because it was tahor maaser sheni, and then if it became tame now with the durabanan, it's a very weakening, and therefore you should still eat it in Yerushalayim even after redeeming it. But even if it was tame, even if it was tahor when you brought it in and became tame with the doraisa, then immediately the walls relinquish their hold. Okay.
Okay.
Halakoach b'kesef maaser sheni shenitma. So now you have produce that was purchased with maaser sheni money, and it became tame, maybe redeemed.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's what we just learned in the previous Mishnah. But Rabbi Yehuda Omer Ikaver, he says no. You cannot. He's disagreeing with actually the previous Mishnah in principle, and unless Rabbi Yehuda is talking about he's saying the previous Mishnah could be talking about any Maaser Sheni, even original Maaser Sheni, and then he would agree with this. But he's saying that if money has been spent on Maaser Sheni produce, then it cannot be redeemed, even if it becomes Tameh. Okay, now everyone looks at Rabbi Yehuda and says, Amru lo Rabbi Yehuda, Oman Maaser Sheni atzmo shenitma harehu nifteh. Halakoach b'kesem Maaser Sheni shenitma eno din sheyipadeh. He says they say to him, but like the original kedusha was on from the Maaser Sheni project itself. Okay, and if it became tamei, you can still redeem it. Shouldn't you be able to redeem the Maaser Sheni that was bought with Maaser Sheni funds, which is only kind of a secondary kedusha? And Rabbi Yehuda doesn't take this argument. He says, "Lo, imamatim Maaser Sheni atzmo shekain hu nifte betahor berichuk makom." He says, Maaser Sheni, the original Maaser Sheni produce, is much more makel, because that you're allowed to redeem even when it's tahor, and that you're allowed to redeem even at a distance.
Mhm.
How can you say that about what was purchased with Maaser money? she'eno nifde b'tahor b'richok makom. It cannot be redeemed at after you've bought it if it's tahor. And he says, so your whole Kal V'chomer is weakened. And honestly, I can see his point. It's a strong argument that Rabbi Yehuda is making that we are more machmir on money on produce that was purchased with Maaser Sheni money. However, the halacha still follows the Chachamim, and you are allowed to redeem that Maaser Sheni, even if it was purchased with Maaser Sheni money, as if it became Tameh.
It says which when clean may not be redeemed at a distance, so it can't be redeemed outside of the
Yeah,
wall.
yeah.
Right. Okay.
Just want to see the Richot Makom. Um, Yeah, and even if you he says even if you took your Maaser Sheni money in Beit Shemesh and spent it on some food there, now
Right.
you still cannot redeem it even though you're outside Yerushalayim, and that's his point. Okay, Mishnah Yud Aleph. Tzvi shelakacha b'kesef maaser. Okay, so now instead of talking about produce, we're now talking about an animal. You bought the animal because you want its meat.
Right.
Okay, and that's a legitimate use of Maaser Sheni money. So he purchased a live deer, the kesef maser v'meis, and then the animal died. Okay, so it's the whole thing is nevela.
Right.
Okay, what do you do with it now? Says the Mishnah, yikaver al yedei oro. The whole thing must be buried, including the skin, because the skin it's all been used for Maaser Sheni, and now you cannot redeem Maaser Sheni. What you're going to do with the meat? You're going to feed it to your dogs. Okay, and that we don't allow you to redeem Maaser Sheni just to feed it to your dogs. Okay, so therefore the whole animal has to just be buried. It cannot be used, and it's the end of the story of the Maaser Sheni there. Rabbi Shimon disagrees. He says no, it can be redeemed. You can take it and feed it to your dogs. He's not cautious for that, and Mistama the halacha will not follow him here. Okay, what happens if he lekacho chai ushchato? So he took this tzvi and he shechted it. So now it's meat, and then it became tameh. Okay, so there we say yipadeh. There it can be redeemed. Okay, because it was meat, and you can and so why can you redeem this altogether? Um, because when he purchased it as an animal, and the reason why. So there, again, the reason why Chachamim were matir this redemption of Maaser Sheni produce that was purchased with money. Why they were in the first place? Why you can redeem it in the first place is because it's easier to. I mean, this is in the Torah. You're allowed to redeem Maaser Sheni, um, and to make it easier to carry to Yerushalayim. Why were Chachamim makbid about that once you've purchased something with your Maaser Sheni money that you cannot redeem it again is because now when you're purchasing it you're saying okay now I can this is stuff that I'm intending to carry to Yerushalayim. A tzvi is different when it's alive because it carries itself. You're not carrying it. So it's the fact that you redeemed your money onto this tzvi, it doesn't. There's no reason to ask him to redeem it again if it became if he well, because it's in a different category from produce because it was a living creature, okay, that could walk itself. So that may be if he shechted it and it turned into meat and then the meat became tameh, you can still redeem it even though you're going to be feeding it to the dogs. Interesting. Okay. Oh, no, 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 no. Beg your pardon. It's kosher meat. You're not feeding it to the dogs. Cancel what I just said. You're going to be eating it yourself at a later stage. You can preserve the meat and have it at a time when you don't need to stay tahor. Okay. Rabbi Yossi Omer Yikaver, but he doesn't like this idea, and he still says don't redeem it. And in fact, he's holding like Rabbi Yehuda in the previous Mishnah that you cannot redeem what was purchased with Maaser Sheni money. Although Rabbi Yehuda is not mentioned over here because he actually agrees with Chachamim in this particular case. Because of what I just said, that the tzvi is a different case than the vegetables or produce. Okay. Lekach shachut. Now, what happens if he purchased the meat already shachut? He went and used his Maaser Sheni money at the butcher's. All right, who kaperos? That's exactly now like peros. He didn't buy it when it was alive. It's and the halacha is going to follow the same lines as it did in the previous Mishnah. That Chachamim will say you can redeem it, and Rabbi Yehuda will say you cannot. Okay, let's go.
Okay, olive base. Maaser Sheni of cattle when unblemished may not be sold alive, and when blemished, neither alive nor slaughtered, nor may one betroth a woman with it. A firstling when unblemished may be sold alive, and when blemished, both alive and slaughtered, and one may betroth a woman with it. Maaser Sheni may not be redeemed with an azamon, or with a coin which is not current, or with money that is not at one's disposal. If one buys cattle for peace offerings or a non-domestic animal for meat consumption, the hide becomes non-holy, even though the hide exceeds the flesh. Sealed jars of wine in localities where they are sold sealed, the jar becomes non-holy. Nuts and almonds, their shells become non-holy, and grape residue wine, before it is fermented, may not be bought with Maaser Sheni money. After it has fermented, it may be bought with Maaser Sheni money. If one buys a non-domestic animal for a peace offering or cattle for meat consumption, the hide does not become non-holy. Open or sealed jars of wine where they are sold upon, or when they're sold open, the jars do not become non-holy. And baskets of olives and baskets of grapes together with this receptacle, the value of the receptacle does not become non-holy. Okay.
Promos.
Okay. No, I thought 2, 3, 4. I think that was it. I started on base.
Yeah, so you finished. Yeah, that's right. So
Did,
now we're going back to Trumas.
oh, well, okay, okay. Oh, I thought you said one more.
No, Trumos.
Okay.
Sorry.
Juma. Okay. We have hey Vav. Here we are. Rabbi Eliezer says one may pay with one kind for another, provided he pays from the superior for the inferior. The Rikiva says one may pay only with the same kind. Therefore, if he ate cucumbers of the 6th year, he must wait for the cucumbers of the 8th year and pay with them. From the same source that Rabbi Eliezer derives his lenient ruling, Rabbi Akiva derives his stringent ruling, as it is written, and he shall give the holy thing to the priest, anything that may become holy, holy. So says Rabbi Eliezer, but Rabbi Akiva says, and he shall give the holy thing to the priest, the holy thing that he ate. If one eats truma willfully, we must repay its value, but does not pay the fifth. The repayment is chulin, and if the priest wants to forego it, he may forego it. If a priest's daughter married a non-priest and afterwards are a truma, that she repays its values, but does not pay the fifth, and her death is by burning. If she was married to any one of those ineligible, she must repay its value plus a fifth, and her death is by strangling. So Rabbi Meir, sages say both repay its value and do not pay the fifth, and their death is by burning.
Okay. Am I?
Okay. My olive base. The Maya is not the subject is not subject to the fifth and to removal, and may be eaten by an onan. It may be taken into Yerushalayim and taken out again, and a small quantity may be left on the road, and one may give it to an Amaretz, but must consume its equivalent, and it may be changed for silver, copper for copper, silver for copper, and copper for fruit, provided that the fruit will be redeemed for money. So says Rav Meir, but the Kukumim say the fruit must be taken up to Yerushalayim and eaten there. If one buys food for seed or for cattle, food for hides, oil for the lamp, oil for greasing utensils, it is exempt from demai. Comes gizib, and beyond one is exempt from demai. The challah of an amaretz and mixed produce, and one has been brought with the Maaser Sheni money, and the remainder of the meal offerings are exempt from demai, and perfumed oil. Rabbi Beit Shammai declares it liable, but Behila exempts. Demai may be used for an Erev and for partnership, and the blessing is recited thereon, and one invites on it, and one may separate it in the nude or at dusk. If one has separated Maaser Sheni before Maaser Rishon, it does not matter. Oil which the weaver rubs on his fingers is liable to the Mai, but that which the root comber puts on his wool is exempt from the Mai. Yeah. Okay.
Avos. No, wait, Negaim first. Negaim.
Fine. Okay. Hay base. The Kohen confirmed the nega because of white hair, which then disappeared. Subsequently, either the white hair reappeared or the living skin or expansion appeared. Whether the original with white hair had appeared initially after the first week, after the second week, or after the nega had been declared tahor, the status of the nega does not change. The Kohen confirmed the nega because of living skin and which then disappeared. Subsequently, either the living skin reappeared or white hair or expansion appeared. Whether nega was originally confirmed initially after the first week, after the second week, or after it had been declared tahor, the status of the nega does not change. The Kohen confirmed the nega because of an expansion and then disappeared. Subsequently, either the expansion reappeared or white hair appeared. Whether the original nega was initially confirmed at the end of the first week or at the end of the second week or after it was declared tahor, the status of the nega does not change. Deposited hair, Akiva Memahal, Ruzatame, and the sages rule of tahor. What is deposited hair? Someone had a Baharis with white hair. The Baharis disappeared, leaving the white hair in place and subsequently returned. Kiva ben Mal rules the deposited hair at the top is Tame, and the sages rule the Tahoe. Rabbi Kiva said, I agree that this case is Tara because it is not deposited hair. What is deposited hair? Someone had a Bahara the size of a grist that contained two white hairs. The hairs receded half a grist, leaving the white hair on the remaining Baharas and subsequently returned. They said to him, just like the Kiva's opinion, like Eliah's opinion is disregarded, so your opinion is not upheld. Any doubt concerning the guy initially is ruled tahar as long as the afflicted person is not confirmed tame. Once the afflicted person has been confirmed tame, a doubt is ruled tame. I'm sorry, I'm confirmed a doubt is ruled tame. How so? Two people came to a kohen, one with a bahar the size of a grist, and the other with a bahar the size of a cellar. At the end of the week, both bahars are the size of a cellar, and it is unknown which is the one that spread. Whether both Baharas are on one person or on two people, which each Baharas is ruled Tahor, and Rakiva says one person is Tame and two people it is Tahor.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to stop over here because I got to get to shore.
I'm
Um,
sorry. Okay. All
okay,
right.
no, that's me. It was it was a long
Thank you for the
explanation
conversation.
today.
Bye. Bye.
Okay,
Okay.
I'll stop. All right, see you tomorrow, Mitzvah Hashem.